Hello, this is Eddie Mendoza and welcome to Pathways of Hope. Today, our gospel from the first chapter of Luke, verses 26 to 47, it takes us back to the time when the angel Gabriel announced to Mary, who was a virgin engaged to a man named Joseph, that she would miraculously conceive even prior to their marriage and that she would give birth to a boy whom they would name Jesus. According to Gabriel, Jesus would be the promised one awaited by the people of Israel, the Messiah. I love this passage because within a few verses, we have a rich collection of reflections enough to fill a weekend retreat, I believe. And my mind reels with so many questions, the answers to which would reveal amazing aspects and qualities of God's powerful and abundant faithfulness and love. Questions like, why announce to Mary? Why not announce to Joseph? Why wasn't Joseph part of the plan to begin with? And why even announce it at all before she gave birth? Couldn't she just have conceived and then made the announcement or received the announcement and calling of Jesus after he was born? After all, remember, Abraham was called when he was in his super senior years, right? But for today, let me focus on two things. And my prayer is that you would be inspired by how Mary was called, by what God shows about himself, and by how Mary responded to that calling. First of all, you would wonder why, of all people, Mary was the chosen one. Actually nothing is known about her other than that she was a virgin maiden engaged to a carpenter named Joseph. And the only notable thing about Joseph, by the way, was that he was a descendant of David. But there were so many descendants, hundreds, maybe even thousands of descendants other than Joseph himself. And you would think that maybe Mary's cousin Elizabeth had more credentials than her to be the mother of Jesus. After all, Elizabeth was a descendant of Aaron, who was the first high priest of Israel. And her husband, Zacharias, was himself a respected priest of the temple. But honestly, I don't have the answers. What I believe is the choice of Mary says more things about God himself than about Mary herself. And I don't mean to put down Mary and all her beautiful and esteemed qualities, because they are there. But I think everyone can draw inspiration from the fact that God chooses whomever he desires, not on the basis of their credentials or worthiness, but on the basis of their willingness. On the basis of their willingness. If you're listening to this video right now and you feel that God will never call you to any mission because you feel underqualified, think again. Think again. You may feel that your ability, experience, or your education makes you unlikely to serve the King of Kings. Sure, maybe God had a unique reason when he selected a pure virgin like Mary for this singular and very special task of giving birth to his son, Jesus. But there are a million other things that God desires to accomplish through ordinary people like you and me. And looking beyond the call of this simple, poor maiden, you might want to remember that Jesus called sinners. He called corrupt officials and even murderers to serve him in proclaiming the kingdom. In fact, even without our knowing it, would you believe, you and I are already participating today in God's plan somewhere, whether we know it or not. We're already part of something that he wants to accomplish. Even if we don't know it and we don't think we're cooperating. But the more sensitive we are to God's voice, then the more we should be ready and willing to submit ourselves to those specific callings that God desires for you and I to accomplish. Our willingness, remember, our willingness and not our qualifications is the key to fruitful service in God's kingdom. Now, speaking of willingness, the second thing I want us to reflect on is how the angel Gabriel dealt with the doubt and the confusion of Mary. You see, when Gabriel said things about Jesus being the Son of the Most High, and that God would give him the throne of David and that he would reign forever, Mary must have thought, wow, this is great. And yes, of course, I'm more than willing. But wait, how can this be? How can I get pregnant? Mary's thinking. I'm not yet married and I'm a virgin. And how does Gabriel respond to this? Gabriel assures Mary that no word from God, no promise that he has ever made can fail to be fulfilled. My friends, when God calls us out of the blue to a seemingly impossible task, we may not be able to imagine in our wildest dreams how it could happen. But believe it or not, nothing is impossible with God if you are willing to serve Him. This point tells us another very important aspect about God. First is the obvious. He is sovereign and is most powerful, and there is nothing that man considers impossible that God cannot accomplish. Nothing is impossible with God except for one thing. Okay, nothing is impossible for God except for one thing. And what's that exception? The only thing that is impossible with God is that He will never and can never go against His word. Yeah, that's impossible. What He says would happen, will happen. What He says He would do, He will do. And Gabriel says it simply, for no word from God will ever fail. And this, my dear friends, my dear brothers and sisters, is the source of hope for all of us. God is true to all of His promises. And we know this because this is the theme of the entire Bible. This is what happened to Abraham and his wife when they conceived Isaac in their very old age. This is what happened to the Israelites when God assured Moses that He would rescue them from the Pharaoh and his mighty army. And everything that happened to Jesus was according to more than 300 different prophecies spoken about Him through several centuries before Him in different countries. Indeed, God has spoken throughout the history of man, and He continues to speak even today. And you and I are assured that God, who is abundant in love and faithfulness, will remain faithful to His word, and He will be consistent in His love for us. And we can rest assured in this love. You can rest assured in this love. You know why? Because He said so. Because He said so. My dear friends, God has a plan and a purpose that He has laid out for each one of us. Earlier we said that you should not doubt His call just because you feel unqualified. Your willingness to do anything that the Lord asks of you is all that you need to serve the King of Kings. And even when you are certain that you do not have the capacity nor the resources to do what God tells you to do, be assured that nothing is impossible with the Lord. In fact, let me conclude by declaring that it delights the Lord even more. It delights the Lord even more when we are completely incompetent and incapable of doing what He asks us to do. Because this is when He shines the brightest and where His glory will be revealed. Not through our skills and our talents, not through our wealth and our resources, not through our connections and popularity, not through anything except by His power, by His wisdom, and by His love. So, be blessed, my friend, and know that God is with you. Again, this is Eddie Mendoza, and God bless you and those whom you choose to share this with.